Welcome back, everybody. This is Mog once more here on Mog's Cast, playing some more Kerbal Space Program with you folks today. And this is the rocket we're going to be launching up. Another one of the stationary recon ones that had the dropship and the station. Sorry, I got a couple of my failures here at the start. We had 3 pretty rough starts to this mission, unfortunately. Blew up the pad here twice, and then blew up when we were almost to orbit, detaching those last of the radial engines on the asparagus staging setup. Now, this was our successful flight. Finally getting going here. I had to take it a little slower, ease up on the throttle with the release of the canisters on the side. I need to reposition the Separatrons a little better so that they eject out more cleanly, because currently they have a chance of hitting that lower tank and breaking the engine attached to it. As you can see, that came pretty close, but you'll notice my thruster, or my throttle, I throttle down a little bit, and then so like I can slow up a bit. And then when I detach, you'll notice that I speed it right back up so I blow past the other ones, so that the velocity difference changes quickly, and we basically fly free. So we're coming down, we're at about 40,000 kilometers up and pushing into our final orbit burn, and detach those last tanks. We're getting pushed up, our apoapsis is up in space. Now we're getting ready to circularize, setting up our node and nosing down toward it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and mention it right now because it just happened. The music's going to kind of cut in and out here on occasion, somewhat. I tried to minimize the effects and because everything in game is sped up, and then it's also been additionally sped up in editing, in post-editing, so that it's just a little quicker episode. This was almost an hour and 20 minutes worth of footage, all things considered, before it was finished. And then shortened on up and did post-commentary on, so it's a little bit cleaner. Hopefully you guys don't mind. As we get over into some bigger missions, it's going to possibly be having to be broke up into multiple sections. I'm still going to try to cut them down, make them a little cleaner, get rid of the boring stuff as you guys have seen it, and go back into the main mission core stuff. Now, as you can see, we're adjusting our inclination on our orbit because this time we're going to go out and try to meet Minmus here. As you can see, we got our node set up, and we're adjusting to see our best launch point. And to start our burn, you saw how I did that. I pushed out the projected path to where it's just getting close to that line out there from Minmus, and then rotated it around Kerbin until it met up properly, so that we got our timing right. Starting our burn now. This is the big burn. The rest of it's pretty easy, because once we get out to Minmus, we're going so slow already at our total apoapsis there because of how oblong it is. We're going very slow. And because of the very low gravity on Minmus, maneuvering and getting into orbit is extremely simple as far as Delta V goes. Your Delta V concerns are pretty much out the door when it comes to Minmus if you can get out there in the first place. It's very simple to get back into orbit and very simple to return to Kerbin. So it's a nice second stop once you get the core mechanics of how this kind of stuff works down with the MUN. Getting our initial transfer done, pushing on out, and yeah, as you can tell, we're obviously going to Minmus. We're going to be getting a soil sample and leaving behind a station in orbit. In fact, fuel permitting, we may make a hop or two. We'll see what happens. It'll be nice once you can actually get rovers out to places like this, though Minmus doesn't work great for rovers unless they're big, heavy rovers. Because little light rovers is just too quick. They bounce around, they're way too light, and with how little gravity you have from the get-go on Minmus, you need to be careful with that. Transitioning, we've actually come into the sphere of influence now, and as you can see, we're adjusting in our orbital burn. We are a little off kilter, but not by much. That can all be adjusted after we've already been put into the orbit. Coming in on Minmus there, nice little shot. Zip it on in. And about to make the burn, we're readjusting that initial point. Bring it back in track after movements in orbit. And our burn. We needed to detach that lower tank. We ran out of the last little bit of fuel in it trying to close this. And then we had to go back to our tanks that were designed for this portion of the mission. Bringing the station into position. Now, I at this point noticed that I came in on the wrong orbit. We are orbiting basically backwards to what we like to see in an orbit, so that launching from the surface to come back up to the station becomes easier. You rotate the other direction, which is what we're going to be correcting here. You can see on the nav ball I'm pointing my nose toward the retrograde marker, and I think actually first we're going to be adjusting our inclination to be a little more even along the plane, or along the equator. There's Kerbin and the Mun. You can see him way off there in the back. Coming up to the point, burning south on the nav ball, approximately, based on our orbit here. And you can see that levels it back out. The next thing we're doing is readjusting, going toward the retrograde marker here. Slow ourselves down. You can see our orbit's only a little over 100 meters per second, and you can see we just basically turned it around. We slowed ourselves back down to 0, and then back up going in the alternate direction. You can see we're now going around Minmus in the proper orientation for orbit. I'm coming right around the dark side now. Thankfully, this does come with fuel equipped on it in the form of that back tank, as well as plenty of docking nodes and solar panels. So once we get the station all set up, we're going to be running some science, but we're also going to be separating the nose bit of it, the actual lander unit. That's going to be going down to the surface. Now, in the future, we may actually come back here with smaller rockets that can come up to the station and dock here and be perpetual ground landers on this moon, but not at this point. We're just got the one-use moon to get us there and back. We are detaching, pushing ourselves away just a little bit with some thrusters, whipping ourselves back around to kind of go toward the retrograde marker, and slow ourselves down and come in for a landing. We're going to be trying to shoot for the light side of the moon. Now, I say the moon because it technically is a moon. I guess I should clarify by saying Minmus. And we're zipping around. There's the music kicking back in. And we're going to be landing in this lake. The easy spot for landing is definitely here in the lakes where it's very solid. It's at sea level and very smooth. So we come in, we're having to readjust in a little bit, and we're going to slow it down just a bit more closer to the actual impact zone, where we should have perfect landing site and visibility. You can see this time we've actually got landing legs on our craft. That's a big plus. We can actually land properly. We're cutting off our delta V momentum forward, trying to bring that down to just a falling momentum for the most part. Now, because of how little gravity it takes here, it actually you need very little fuel to actually land on the surface. Like you can see here, you can watch the velocity climbing up on the nav ball. We're only at about 50 and dropping now very quickly, with barely using any thrusters. You can see down there on the throttle menu on the left-hand side of that nav ball, it's barely going up when we engage. And it's enough to slow us down a lot. You can see our shadow coming into view there, so that's why that's one way that we can gauge our landing. We lost our shadow there for a second. It kind of freaked me out for a moment, but I thought I saw something that I didn't. I thought it was like a hillside, and this is a lot lighter than it looks like, and we land down just fine right on the nice iced surfaces of the of Minmus here. And it looks like we're going to hop out, take a soil sample, and plant a flag. And look at him, he's happy as a clam. Ah, there's that music kicking in again. We've gone ahead and got our rock sample. Now let's plant that flag. Doing some spins. Woo! There we go. Flag is going down. We're going to be labeling that up for this flight. First landing on Minmus with the pilot name Billy Bob. I couldn't remember his last one. Bob Fell-Kerman, that's what it was. Billy Bob Fell-Kerman. And I forget that again very quickly, you will notice. Checking out everything, making sure that I'm not forgetting anything down here on the surface, and making sure of our checklist for things to still do in this flight to complete the contract. So you've got that set. Now what I want to do is, because it's so worthwhile to collect soil samples wherever you can, because of how much science they're worth, we're going to push out to this little plateau up here, just to the kind of southeast of where we landed, to the little flat portion up here. It's not quite as flat as it looks, but it's definitely a lot less hilly than the rest of the stuff around here. It does have a slant to it, but not too bad. That got a little loud on mine. I'll try to adjust that though, so it won't be too bad. There we go, we've got our prograde directly below us, falling just a little over a meter a second, or 10 meters a second. Changing the surface speed so we get a better idea of what's going on now, in relative speed, because we were on orbital speed there for a minute, and the planet was actually rotating around us, underneath us, so we had to adjust because of how slow we were going to land. Coming in, now this looks a little bit harder than it was. This was actually pretty good. We almost had a little tip there, but it was not enough to overtake the RCS thrusters and SAS stabilizers. Getting our second flag planted, And this is where I forgot the name again a little bit. Bob Fowl, something. I just labeled it and called it good. Wanted to mark it, but we got our soil sample, so now we're getting ready to head back up. And we don't even really need to rendezvous at the station, but I think we are going to. Just to top off tanks, things like that. Make sure that the station's in relatively good order, and then we're going to be taking this shuttle back to Kerbin. Or are we just going straight in? I think we might just be going straight. Nope. No, we are. Okay, fair enough. My mistake. We're not going back up to the station. Looks like we were just going to go straight in, coming right behind the Mun, and heading home. Bringing our samples with us. Now, you can definitely tell we have more than enough fuel to get this done. This is our big burn that we have to do, and the only burn we have to do. We have just under half tanks still left at this point, but we should have a little bit less after we finish this burn. But all the same, it's going to be good stuff. We're taking some EVA reports out here while we can, grabbing some science from around the Mun, and getting ready to do that. Not the Mun, what am I saying? Minmus, around Minmus. Extending out our solar panels to collect some of that juicy electricity to power ourselves back up, because at this point I had actually run out of electricity from being on the surface for too long and not having those exposed properly. Burning out. That's the rest of it. We probably have about a quarter to a third tank of gas left, and that's all we're going to need to use until we come in for a landing. Now, you're going to get a nice little view here of us coming back to Kerbin, and the Mun coming around toward us. Now, because we sped it up, we actually bypassed the Mun before it came in front of us on that trajectory. Bringing in the solar panels for now. We don't need them. We're getting pretty close. Not much else we need to worry about at this point. We're zipping in here to Kerbin. This is a very fast turnaround. We're going to be cutting through the atmosphere and feeling those effects here pretty quick. Zipping through, we turned on physical time warp because of how slow we were getting. Or because of how low we were getting, not how slow. You can see we're using some extra juice here. We're burning in a bit. And it looks like... Are we going to zip back out and come back in? I have a feeling we're doing an aero brake here. Excuse me. Are we going to see the sunrise? Kerbal come over the Kerbin horizon? We sure are. Framed right behind us. Yep, so we made ourselves another big trip out, about 600,000 kilometers, or 600 kilometers up. Not 600,000, that'd be so far. Another 600 kilometers up, and now we're coming in for another aero brake, and this one's certainly going to bring us in for a landing. Now, we're landing on the dark side, which is never a good idea, but this kind of thing does happen, and I'm not the best at actually planning that ahead of time. I'm impatient, I guess. I just don't want to do the little prep there to make sure that we land on the light side, because I'm never very good at it, at timing it. Coming back in, though, we're almost through the atmosphere and slowed down a lot by this point. Yeah, we're only going about 400 meters a second and slowing down. We're about 10 kilometers up still and dropping very fast in this time sped clip. Under 5,000, under 4,000, under 3,000, under 2, 1,000, and the parachute should be deploying here, and I think they actually just did. And because we are above the surface, this is going to be a little bit heavy landing, but we bump into it just fine. And we were back home, recovered it. We got 470, almost 5 science retrieved that time. And brought back a good chunk of parts, about half the cost of the vehicle. The rest are in parts as far as what's fallen back to the Earth. And we brought back everybody. So now we're going to spend some points, unlock a few new things. Now, if you can catch them here, I might miss them, because this is sped up a little bit, but we were looking at a lot of different things. It looks like we're looking at advanced aerodynamics at this point. Unmanned tech, the ones for drones, the little stuff. I actually thought that kind of stuff might be nice. Electronics might be good. We could start getting the stuff for rovers, which is, I think, what we actually do end up doing. Advanced metalworks, nuclear propulsion, big rocketry stuff. That might be nice for pushing out quickly into the other realms. But we'll see. Advanced aerodynamics, I think, would be fun. I was looking at building more space planes because I kind of want to work on that too, but I'm going to pick up a few here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you guys next time. Cheers!